Hello, friends, and welcome to Ted Russ Ministries for September 7th, 2025. I am not Ted Rust. I did not age backwards. I am his son, Andrew, and have been the producer of Ted Russ Ministries these last 3 years. Ted, in his infinite wisdom, deleted the sermon that he had meant for this Sunday. He's on vacation right now, so he can't record a new one. Or God thought it was so bad that he deleted it for him. Either way, I am stepping up to the plate and filling in for him and providing this week's message because the show must go on. I won't do any songs because he's a lot better at that than me, and I don't think you want to hear me sing. I don't want to hear me sing. So I'll just be sticking to some prayers as well as my message. So without further ado, welcome to a special edition of Ted Russ Ministries. Heraclitus was an ancient Greek philosopher credited with saying that the only constant in life is change. And if that is true, then uncertainty from that is an almost assured outcome. And that is my theme of this message, is uncertainty. And uncertainty is present even in our most trivial and meaningless decisions. What am I going to have for dinner? Is my food going to get here on time? Will Ted delete his next sermon too? How many more sermons will Ted delete before he learns how not to delete them? I kid, but these trivial decisions, while they do carry uncertainty, it's only really the superficial kind, and that's not the flavor of uncertainty that I want to speak about and the one that I think is important. The true uncertainty that I want to talk about is almost this existential uncertainty. It results in these agonizing questions. Questions that are difficult to ask and almost impossible to answer. Sometimes we don't even ask them, or we maybe only ask them privately to God. These are questions like, will I stay healthy? Am I with the right person? Am I doing the right thing? Should I risk my current job or occupation to pursue a dream? Will I regret the choices I've made or this choice in my life? Are my family and friends the people that are hoisting me up or secretly holding me back? And why do bad things happen to good people? I posit that this uncertainty, the kind I'll kind of call existential, is the root of many of our destructive behaviors and pathologies. Whether we recognize this or not, I think the fear of what we don't know, this uncertainty, is often the primary driver of our decisions. This uncertainty is a fear of failure, rejection, judgment, sacrifices that are made in vain. It's a fear of loneliness, poverty, financial insecurity, sickness, war, or death. And since we so rarely ask these difficult questions, we certainly rarely address the underlying fear that's the cause of this uncertainty. We aren't even aware that these are fears that are driving our decision making. We love and we seek out certainty, planning, predictability, believing that we can in some way control the future. We love contracts, guarantees, assurances of what tomorrow will bring. And perhaps this aversion to uncertainty and this desire for control is biologically hardwired into us. It's a remnant from a time where unpredictability meant physical danger. But in our modern world, most of our uncertainty stems from internal anxieties. So these are imagined sicknesses, catastrophic thinking, fear of what others might think about us. Metaphorically, we're building boats or diversifying investments, but thinking we can control the ocean or predict the stock market, which you can't do unless you're insider trading. We mistake this preparation, which is good, for control, and to mistake those two is to invite the inevitable despair when uncertainty occurs. And certainty itself isn't something that we discover. It's merely just a feeling that we experience, and one that I argue is often more of a temporary illusion than any kind of true security. So I don't quite have the wisdom of age that my father does. He's lived much more of a life than me and has many more experiences to draw on. But I've lived a little bit of a life, and my life so far has just been in school. So from grade school all the way up to college, finally all the way through grad school. I majored in engineering and was mostly in these science and math classes. And we focused on asking questions that would then result in useful answers. And that's just, thinking it's a scientific method. That's just thinking like a scientist. And science itself has done many wonderful things for humanity at large, from medicine to cars, rockets, computers, to the very camera and audio and internet equipment that this show's on. But after years of asking these scientific questions and inquiring about computers and math, I found myself asking or drawn to these questions that I think that were beyond its reach, in my opinion. I graduated, as it were, to questions I didn't really think science could answer. Why are we here? Why do humans even exist? What is good and evil? Do we just make it up to justify conflict between us? What should I be doing with my time here on Earth? Should I be focused on God or pleasure or virtue, knowledge or family? Once these questions shifted from these materialistic and scientific questions to, the more philosophical or religious, our scientific tools of reasoning really begin to show their limits, breaks down. There's no microscope or particle accelerator that can tell us why we're here or why Ted deleted his sermon. This study of us demands a different kind of inquiry. It's almost a willingness to embrace the ambiguity and grapple with questions that may not have definitive answers, or at least answers that we can convince ourselves are definitive. And the questions themselves aren't even complicated questions. They're the same ones that kids ask. The kids ask their parents. There isn't some nice reductionist answer, a single equation or experiment that unlocks these deeper questions. And fortunately for you guys, you'll be happy to know that after just a couple years of meditation, reading, and contemplation, and at the ripe age of 25, which is how old I am, I figured it all out. I have an answer. The answer, ironically, is quite simple. It's just not easy. My answer is, I don't know. And it can be terrifying to admit that you don't have control, to let go of this illusion of certainty, of planning, of predictability. But in that surrender, there's also a strange sense of freedom. It's almost a release from the burden of trying to control the existentially uncontrollable. And that freedom is found in a surrender to belief. And it's not a passive resignation. It's more of an active surrender. It's a letting go of this illusion that we have of control. It's acknowledging that there are forces just beyond our comprehension, and the true freedom that we seek in answering these questions lies not in mastering the forces of the universe, but in accepting them and kind of coming to peace with this uncertainty. And for the more skeptical of you out there, this I don't know answer is probably not very satisfying to you. And it didn't really help me much at all at first. But it really made me stare and think about what that answer means. What does it mean? I don't know. What does that really mean? And what can you do about it if you really accept that as an answer? And I'm going to argue here that I don't know isn't a nihilistic or atheistic or dismissive answer about this. In fact, I'd argue it's quite the opposite. To truly grasp the weight of this I don't know answer, we need to recognize the powerlessness inherent in being. You need to descend to a state of pure humility. It's a relinquishment of your human intellect and subliminally a kind of a submission to the wills beyond your control. It's a submission to the powers of God. This recognition forms the foundation of a meaningful life and leads us to understand a few key principles in dealing with this answer. Firstly, number one, you need to embrace this powerlessness. It's vital that for you to accept that control, perfect control of your life, of mastering this uncertainty that the future always has, at best is an illusion, and it's more often just a comforting lie that we tell ourselves to say that, we know what's going to happen. We're wired this way to avoid discomfort and seek this certainty, which is why we'd often prefer a certain negative outcome over an uncertain, potentially good one. We like this certain option. Even when the uncertain one is, the one that actually could hold something good. Second, we need to value the transience of our life. We need to find beauty in this belief of things being finite. Understand that the fleeting nature of life is not what makes it bad or isn't a curse, it's a gift. If Da Vinci had lived forever and he was endlessly just copying the Mona Lisa over and over and over again, we wouldn't really think it's that beautiful. Its beauty would be diminished. It's the finite nature of his life and his work and the knowledge that his time on the earth was limited. And it imbues that work with such profound meaning. Same goes with the Bible and all of Jesus' works. This recognition underscores that it's the fleeting nature of existence that makes each moment precious. It's what makes art art. What makes beauty beauty. There is a profound beauty in this belief, in this surrender. It's not a blind faith, but it's a refined trust honed by your experience. It's almost a divine intuition that guides us when logic fails, which it does. It's a willingness to let go of the need to know everything and embrace the mystery of life. And we can choose to be defined by the circumstances outside of our control, or we can choose to rise above them. My third facet of dealing with this answer is to cultivate faith over fear. Like I said at the beginning, fear is what drives most of our decision making. You can live paralyzed by things that you can't control. You can pretend that bad things don't happen to you because you're good and you pray and you go to church, and bad things shouldn't happen to you. Alternatively, you can accept that there are powers and forces beyond your control, and you can live with faith. You can believe that this uncertainty is beyond your control. And it demands only that you believe in it, that you fully embrace and you trust in it. That's really, to me, what God represents, is this. He's just this bastion of belief in the unknowable. He's a representation of the wills beyond your control, the fortune and misfortune. He's the knower of what is unknowable to us as humans. And God doesn't ask that you retreat to him and surrender in fear, nor does he offer neat packaged solutions. He's not slipping notes in the mailbox to you. All he asks for is your faith, your trust in ultimately the unknowable, and your willingness to surrender to a power greater than yourself. So live with a trust in this process that God guides us through, and with pure humility before the divine powers. And this is not a passive acceptance, but it is an active embrace of the uncertainty that guides our lives. It's a surrender that unlocks a deeper sense of peace and purpose. It's a recognition that even in the midst of chaos, there is beauty, there is grace, and there is a power greater than ourselves working to guide us forward. Amen. We now pray together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. If you didn't like my message this week, then great. Ted will be back next week and in perpetuity. If you did like it, then too bad. I'm not doing it for free, and I am going to show Ted how to not delete his services going forward. Thank you. Share the good news of the Lord. Praise be to God. Ted Bundy once said, "What's up? Amen. Babu."